And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. This is Group Therapy. It's a time when myself, McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, gets to sit down with my fellow editors and we talk about what's going on in Livingston Parish. We're going to let them introduce themselves so those of you who are listening and haven't watched can put a voice to a name. And today we're going to start on the viewers and my right.
This is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor with the Livingston Parish News.
All righty, and we're going to jump right into it. And first, but definitely not the least, or that didn't make any sense. I'm sorry, guys. I almost want to start this over, but I'm not going to. I'm going to eat my L with dignity. But we have, I don't know what you would call it. We talked about it this morning, kind of joked around about it that it's the end of COVID, and it's not. It's still out there, but the governor did make the announcement. It was, in fact, at his opening speech for the legislature that he would not be renewing the public health emergency due to COVID. Take it away, David.
Yeah, this is I guess this is going to be released today, Wednesday. Technically today, the current public health emergency proclamation that has been in place for the last month expires today, and Governor Edwards, ahead of the legislative session, said that he would not be renewing it. That's the first time in 24 months since, that original stay-at-home order. March 13th of 2020 was when we originally had the stay-at-home order, that Friday whenever it felt like the world was shutting down. So it was very big news this week. And that was actually, after his brief introduction, singing out his family, that was the first thing that Governor Edwards mentioned in his State of the State address the other day. So yeah, it was just the news that we were all looking for, and it was, like you said, COVID's not gone, and he, did say that he would, if the situation dictates it, he would, put the state back under a public health emergency. But it just really shows that we've, at least we're to the point to where we can exist without being under this public health emergency. Now, it hasn't really, that was more, I guess you could say, ceremonial or symbolic, I guess is a better word, because really there hadn't been any mitigation measures in place the last, month. They pretty much were all gone. But this just kind of officially, puts the state from under that sort of proclamation.
Sure. And what's interesting is the superintendent of schools, Joe Murphy, we've had two letters to the editor from him back-to-back weeks. Last week was about the millage renewal. We've talked about that. But this week was about just the school system sort of at the year of 2 years sort of very tumultuous period, being able to pull away from that. And I brought that up because without mitigation efforts and that kind of thing, large gatherings are happening again. They've been happening for a while, but within sort of the public body, the school system hosted a STEM expo this past weekend. And you could tell it was kind of like the Mardi Gras parades a few weeks ago. People were ready to do things. And you were there. Give us a little bit of overview of what happened.
Yeah, no, this was something that they started at the STEM Robotics Center in they had it once in 2020. And it was actually, I remember, because I went and covered it. I believe I covered it. It was the weekend before everything shut down, I'm pretty sure. And I remember I didn't even because that first week when COVID was really hitting, we all kind of put every other story that we had on the back burner. Like, I remember I never got to publish those photos or anything because, a day or two later after that event, COVID was starting to sweep, so that consumed every bit of our thoughts at that time, and they didn't have one obviously last year in 2021. But yeah, I feel like it was more packed. Just like you could see how some of these parades were in Livingston Parish. They got perhaps more attention just because people have been wanting to do stuff, and even though technically it wasn't lifted this past weekend, the public health emergency was still technically in place. That's not a decision the governor came to that Monday morning. It's probably been a decision that was they had decided a couple days before. So, so you could just see people now starting to live in a, don't want to say COVID free because there are still cases being reported every day. There's still deaths being reported every day. But it is now to a more manageable place than it has been in what feels like several months for sure. I mean, now we're under 200 hospitalizations last I checked, and so I mean, we're getting to the point to where it is manageable. But God willing, there's not another surge. That's the only thing we can hope for.
Sure, sure. So we're going to come back to you for a couple other things, but I want to move over to Rob because we had the state championships for the winter sports have occurred. Unfortunately, our final basketball team got bounced. And you were there. You were at Burton Coliseum in Lake Charles. I'm guessing the atmosphere was a little different than it was the past 2 years.
Yeah, you had people in the stands, man. It was a really good deal. Walker traveled well, and both sides making noise. State championship game for Walker didn't turn out to. I mean, in the way I wrote it it just wasn't their night. It's a lot of the things that had worked for them getting to this point didn't come to fruition in this semifinal game. They wound up losing to North Shore, 68-54. Had a stretch there in the third quarter where they kind of, it took them a while to get going, get some points scored, kind of put them behind a little bit, start coming back a little bit. Also got into some foul trouble, which kind of changed things. You have to change some folks out and get some different things going, and a lot of that goes to North Shore as well because, they came in, felt like they matched up pretty well with Walker, and that's pretty much what happened there. But that's not to take anything away from them. They've got a string here of going to the state tournament. I think it's you don't see that all the time, and it's always on their mind to get back. So they've already started working and getting toward that goal.
Right. So, tough way to end the season, but like you said, can't take away from the fact that they're consistently there. They're in the conversation every year.
Well, it wasn't. I think when they won to get to Lake Charles, I said, "What, Coach? That's Coach Giro." I said, "What? That's 5 years." So I've been here 5 years, and all 5 they've been here. So I'm not taking credit for it at all, though. So
you're the good luck charm. So we will come back to you to talk about some spring sports
sure
that have gotten into it. But David, let's talk a little bit about. Some real basic news. Big Lots is coming to Denham Springs. That's pretty easy. I don't think there's really much else to say. They're fitting out the old stage. They're behind Canes right off of I-12. Let's talk a little bit about Miss Melanie Curtin. We did discuss that she would be, the last time we had the show, last week, we did discuss that she would be looking for a retrial. It does look like that's been denied, and her sentencing will be Monday.
That is correct, yes. There was about a 3-hour hearing on last Thursday, so after we recorded the podcast, and both sides made very compelling arguments, and that's what Judge Brian Abels, he even credited both sides for the arguments that they presented. Miss Curtin's defense team as well as the prosecutors from the Attorney General's office. But in the end, the Judge Abels felt that Miss Curtin had received a fair trial, and that the grounds for which they were trying to say she deserved a new trial, he just ultimately ruled that there wasn't enough sufficient backing to justify a new trial. So I mean, there was issues, with the juror reaching out to the defense team saying he felt uncomfortable with his vote. There was some evidence that the defense team said was relevant to the case, but ultimately, Judge Brian Abel said that stuff was irrelevant, or they weren't entitled to a new trial from that stuff. So now Ms. Curtin's sentencing is scheduled for Monday. It appeared that she's going to speak in it. Don't know that for sure. She did say she, wanted to be present during that hearing last week. So, typically, you during sentencing, you get impact statements from, from victims or victims' family members or friends, as well as, the accused and in this case, the convicted, their family members and friends. So, be curious to see. I mean, because this whole time she has maintained that, she was drugged, that Dennis Perkins, took advantage of her, and so curious to see if she brings that up. I mean, she is facing a life sentence for aggravated rape, so she might want to be able to get all of it off her chest before that sentence officially starts. And then, from how it sounded like, sounds like they'll probably appeal that to a higher court. So it might not still be over, after sentencing. But as of right now, that is the latest, that her motion for a new trial was denied, and that sentencing for her will be on March 21st.
Sure. So, and then, of course, that's Monday coming up. Important to note that if they do send that off, it will go to the Court of Appeals, which is in Baton Rouge. And if they don't like what they get there, they can take it to the Supreme Court. And, of course, that's the end of the line. If nothing changes there, then nothing changes. So we'll see how that goes and if they bring it forward. Last but certainly not least, we're going to let you, before we go back to Rob, we're going to let you talk about a controversial subdivision that came up in front of the parish council. You get a little taste for this. It's tough because there's a lot of background to it, but the parish still does not have zoning. They only have specific ordinances that deal with subdivisions and new development. And it causes a lot of controversial situations when things like this come up. So tell us a little bit about this specific situation, which is off of 4-H Club Road, south of Denham, correct?
Yes, off of 4-H Club Road, not in the city limits of Denham Springs. So this is a parish that was the big difference. If it was in the city limits, probably wouldn't be happening. So this is off 4-H Club Road. It's a let me get this right, 481 lot development over 140 something acres. Yeah, that's it. And called Sweetwater Subdivision. And so is the preliminary plat was presented to the parish council. The engineers were there to discuss it, and of course, there was some people who did not want to hear about it, who were vehemently against it. And it's the common concerns that you hear about new developments, and you'll read another piece in the paper next week about a similar situation. Traffic in the area is bad, drainage is bad, sewage is, basically just all this infrastructure concerns that people were saying the parish is not, equipped to handle an influx of more. I mean, you got 400 something lots. I mean, that's, probably 1,000 at least people, you would imagine. So that was kind of the concerns that residents were bringing up, whereas the engineer was saying, they followed all the rules up to now, and that was even what the parish council itself was arguing about, because none of them could really, they seemed to disagree on their powers in this project, and ultimately they ended up deferring a vote, until a later time, till they were to get the findings of an impact study and an opinion from the Attorney General's office on whether or not they can deny a recommendation from the planning commission. So I mean, it's not done yet. Well, that'll come up again whenever, I guess, they get those findings and the opinion from the Attorney General's office. But yeah, just kind of highlighted this problem that doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon, because anytime a new development is popping up, you got people coming out to speak against it. So just that balancing act.
Sure. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes going forward from there. Caused a little bit of controversy, both with the residents in the immediate area as well as the council themselves, and a few split votes before that came down. So thank you, David. We're going to jump over to Rob real quick to get sports. And, well, we already talked about basketball, but winter is done. So we're moving into spring. We have the parish track meet coming up.
Yep.
And I believe you had some meet results.
Yeah, Judy Bayer relays, Denham girls took first, and the Walker boys were second. So that they're rolling too, and we'll be on track with that. Like I said, I think Denham's got a meet next week. They're hosting in the parish meet, I believe, the week following that. So I think that'll be last week of March.
Gotcha. So we'll be rolling forward with those things. But you covered a banger last night between Springfield and Denham.
Great game.
A great game.
Great game.
Tell us a little bit about how that eventually Springfield pulled it out.
Springfield winds up winning 4-3 on a squeeze play. Will Sanders lays down a squeeze bunt, and Blake Lobell scored from third base. It was one of those deals where going into the game last week, I had covered Live Oak and Springfield, and after that game, Springfield wound up losing, but Coach Blanchard was kind of really harping on taking care of small things, small things that lead up to bigger things for the team. And essentially that's what Springfield was able to do. They were able to lay down those bunts, some wild pitches from Denham, and they're able to kind of read those and move some runners around. They only had 2 hits, which kind of tells you the pitching from Christian Callender and Cowan Alfonso from Denham was on point last night for them, but it was just taking care of little things. Denham goes ahead on Larson Farr, hits a 2-run shot in the second inning, I believe, and from then they just kind of settle in and kind of see what's going on. And for Coach Hopkins at Denham, it was just kind of for his kids, he wants them to kind of said, hey, maybe this is a lesson learned. We'll take forward. We'll know. Yeah, once we get off the bus, we got to be prepared to play. We can't, wait around and wait for stuff to happen. We've got to make stuff happen. So that's kind of the teaching point there coming away. Denham had 1 inning, runners on second and third. They also had 2 runners picked off at second. So that's again those little things worked in Springfield's favor where maybe they didn't for Denham in that game last night. Blake Lobell made a great point. I asked him how big this win is for you guys at this point. That gives Springfield their 10th win. They're number 4 right now in the power rankings in 2A. It doesn't sound like a lot, but he made a great point in that at this point with district right around the corner, you get those 10 wins and you kind of solidify yourself and kind of put yourself in a better position for later on down the line when the playoff pairings do come out. We kind of saw that last year with several teams last year. Walker comes to mind. I remember talking to Coach Sandifer. He was talking about getting those wins early and building up that power ranking. So when the playoff pairings actually do come out, you've already put yourself in a pretty good position. And it looks like Springfield is on their way to doing that right now.
Yeah, I mean that's a big win to come in, come to a 5A and win.
Yeah,
and especially in like a very character building fashion. Got to pull out a squeeze to win the game. That's big.
And Denham, I forgot Denham tried to squeeze too, and then the runner was out at the plate. So it was one of those type of games where you're taking some gambles maybe and trying to see what can pay up. But that's the way the game was. It was just close the whole way. So you're trying to take advantage of as many opportunities as you can and seeing what happens. So here we are. That was and Coach Blanchard kind of brought it up. He said it wasn't quite a playoff atmosphere, but it was a little bit bigger than a regular Tuesday night game.
Sure, yeah,
So,
I'm sure it was, and especially not necessarily intra-divisional, but intra-parish. Those are always fun.
yeah, always. And kids know each other. They know what's coming. They know they're going to compete every time they're out there, and have fun at the end of the game. They're going to shake hands and say, "Hey, good job."
Yeah. So thank you, sir. Thank you both for the updates on what's going on in Livingston Parish. I am going to let you guys introduce yourself, and we're going to start with Rob.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. This is Group Therapy. So when I sat down with these two gentlemen, we get to talk about what's going on in Livingston Parish. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We're once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. One last time, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.